Hi, good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Bob Hazeltine, and I'm the instructor at Santa Fe Jeweler Supply, and they're located at 3200 Mercantile Court in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and their phone number is 505-988-9157. I've been teaching for 35, almost 40 years. I've been making jewelry for about 45 years, and so we're now teaching classes here at Santa Fe Jeweler Supply. In addition to a huge inventory of supplies and equipment that we sell here. We've decided to start posting demos on our website to, one, perk your interest in jewelry making, and also we offer classes that will help you with your jewelry making so you're not locked into a stumbling or a hard process trying to get your projects to come out correctly. So this is a basic demo on how to do basic, just very basic enameling, and that means fusing glass to metal. And I think it's a really exciting thing to begin to do as far as expanding horizons in jewelry making, because it leaves you limitless color. Almost any color you can think of is available in enamels. And so this is just a very basic step-by-step how to get the glass onto the metal. So I prepared this surface with a little Scotch-Brite, and I just want to get any oil off of it. And so when I put this is clear fire, and all it does is adhere the flux to the surface of the copper. And so I got a really good layer there, and so I'm just going to sprinkle this on here. And what the flux does, it provides protection to your enamel colors when you start to apply them, so that the copper oxides actually don't come up into the glass. And so copper oxides, cupric oxides, the same thing as fire scale. And what you don't want is you don't want those copper oxides floating up into your colors, because generally speaking, they show up as black spots. With different colors, it would provide a different reaction, but what you really want is uniform color. So this disc up in the corner has already been fluxed, and you can see I've got a really lovely, nice coppery color there. And so I'm just going to heat this up and let it completely bleach out. And you'll see kind of a transition in the color as those dark spots, which are copper oxides, are released from the surface of the work. There, that came out really sweet. And that'll provide a surface so I can enamel color over it. So this one has already been prepared. And I'm just making this a little tighter. Good. So this has a coating of the flux on it. Try not to test things with your fingers, because sometimes they're quite hot. And so this has a coating of flux. Hopefully you can see the copper color come up through it. And in a minute, when we take a short break, I'll get some pieces that we've enameled here, and so you can see how pretty it is. So I'm going to go with just a transparent ruby on this. And again, you put a coat of clear fire on the work. Maybe? Yes. A coat of clear fire. Some people use some stuff called tragacanth. There's a lot of different versions of this, but all this liquid does is it just allows the powdered glass to stick to the surface of your work. So just sprinkle it on to get a nice coverage on it. And usually I leave a sifter full of the color where I can get it. So if I have a spot and while I'm working, if I feel like I want more color, I can just add it on. This is a Smith mini torch, and we want a nice neutral flame. So this is carbonizing, and then this is neutral, and this is oxidizing, which is too hot. So you want a nice neutral flame, which means a uniform turquoise blue cone. And just come under the work. And you'll see this go through some transitions in colors as the glass melts. So it's just starting to melt. Now you see it's hit a transition where it's gotten a little bit translucent. I can tell I need a lot more color, and so I'm just going to sprinkle some more color on it so I can get a nice rich orchid color from this, and then just come back in and melt it. And then a lot of times when you're heating, you just wait till the surface goes nice and smooth. That means that all the glass is completely melted. And when I want to peel them off the screen, I use a spatula and a tweezer because there, as you can see, maybe you can see it, I don't know, but there is some enamel buildup here and it's getting kind of sticky. And I didn't realize it when I set up to do the demo. But I use the tweezer in this in conjunction so I can move the piece over where it can cool off. And so this piece that I just fluxed. And so I think a color that I'm going to use on this is I'm going to put a nice China red on it. It's been renamed. Things kind of course, some of these colors are quite old. But it's been renamed, and there's a red on the market currently that is almost just like this, and it's a really, really dramatic color. But it gives me a chance to explain another thing that happens with color, and it's a phenomenon. Some people just call it strike, but when I heat the red up, it's going to turn a completely different color than what we're after, and so it'd be good for you to see this. So reds strike out really dramatically. And you don't really see the actual color until the piece cools off. So I'm going to melt this on here, and then I'm going to place the piece that's already been covered with this enamel so you can see the difference in what happens when it goes into strike. But you'll see it start to melt, and the red, as you can see now, the red is starting to go quite dark in color. And I can tell already it would be good if I added a little bit more to the edges, so I'm just going to go around, get a little more on the edge. Generally, I don't worry about the edges too much because a lot of these pieces get bezel sets on them. But we'll just bake this color in, and then I'll show you a couple things that happen. So it's going almost like a dead black color or brown, and I'm just waiting to see the surface liquefy. And so it's nice and smooth, so that's all the farther you have to go. Typically speaking with enamels, you just want to go in thin layers if you can. And so this is the red that we're waiting for this to come up to. So as it cools off, you'll see it gradually turn more towards this color. And then these colors on here are put on as glass threads, and then I use this tool to drag them and move them, which I'm going to show you in just a couple minutes. So I think our camera, I think you can see that this has actually come from a very deep black or a maroon color. Now it's starting to bleach in or come into a red, and this just tells you that the enameling is cooling off. I don't worry too much about the edges on every piece because many times they wind up bezel set like this. So the bezel actually hides the edge burden, which with a torch is almost unavoidable, but I make these pieces intentionally to set them in findings that can be purchased. This is a light blue, and this had some edge burn, but you can't see it underneath the bezel. So all is not lost. If you get a little dark edge around your work, all is not lost. It also happens in kiln firing, so it's just a very common phenomenon called edge burn. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong necessarily. But this is coming out a really nice uniform red. It's not quite cool enough, though, because you can see a slight difference in the color still. But also I'm waiting for this color so I can add more clear fire, and I can put some glass threads on there and show you how to do dragging. So we're going to add some glass threads on this, The term, this is glass, but the term that it's called a thread. Not very many people actually call them wires, but they come in primary colors, or if you're really a brave soul, you can actually make your own, which I will say out of the gate can be challenging, but it's kind of fun. It gives you a lot of control over the medium, and so it just depends. The farther you go, the more involved you get with glass, the more involved you're going to get. It's an amazing medium, and it offers so many creative options that it's really kind of hard to resist. When I first started, I've done enameling for years and years and years, but when I first started with glass beads, I actually stopped because I realized there was so much you can do with it. The glass blowing was the next option, and then 20 years later, I'm actually making a living as a glass blower now. So go into this, but beware. So those are sitting pretty good. I didn't have to use the clear fire, which is that clear liquid. I'll show you what the container looks like, and you just buy it with all your other supplies. It's just called clear fire, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a thing called dragging with this. So you can tell by the color that that's beginning to heat up. And what I just did is I filled a little desk container with some water, because if the tool is cool, the glass won't stick to it. When the tool heats up, everything changes, and you can wind up pulling glass out of your work because the tool has gotten hot. So I'm watching to see these glass threads start to slump, and they're slumping off the bottom there, and they're just getting soft enough now where I can hook them and drag them. Just pull the colors like this, and I can push these like this. And it's really, you can get amazing effects by doing this. But if you can see how far I can pull that. And glass is kind of interesting the way it moves too. It really stays pretty uniform. So I'm heating those threads down and just try to relax the surface of the glass or get a smooth surface on it. So, but what I did is I took 3 colors of threads. I have a little pile of them. I don't know if you can see them, but I just have a pile of them. They come in an envelope like this, multicolored, or you can buy envelopes of just single colors if you design a product or something that you just want a single color application. So you can really tune this medium into however you want it. So again, we're waiting for this to come out of strike, and it's not uncommon, but it's stuck to the screen a little bit, so I'm just going to pry it up and use the tweezer to keep it from flying off too far. But as that comes back into strike, it's going to look similar to this piece that I had in front here. So you can see how the colors come back. But all colors change when you heat them up. As a glass blower, I mean, when I'm working with the colors, I just have to know that, I just have to trust that I'm going to get the colors that I want, because everything changes at the end of the pipe. And typically I can't see what colors they are until I pick them up the next day. On this piece, I'm going to apply some flour wafers, or what are called, well, they're called flour wafers, or millefeuille, depending on who you buy them from. And so there are these wonderful little colored discs. And but they just make for some really cute pieces of jewelry that really don't require a real high-tech background to get some very pleasing results. So I don't know, can the camera actually see that these are white and red with a dot in them? We're trying to do macro photography with not necessarily a macro lens today. But you can just put a little stagger of them in the middle of the piece. And so I'm just digging through this pile to find as many that match that I don't drop. But this is just the beginning. There's some beautiful lines of jewelry out where people enamel over 24 karat gold, and they make these beautiful pieces, and then they'll bezel set them into a top of a ring very, very carefully, and it's really endless what you can do with this medium. So I'm going to light the torch and heat these slowly, because I have the clear fire on there, and I don't want to boil it right off. So I'm going to try to dry it slowly so I don't send those flowers flying. And I'm using a softer flame to just heat this very gently. So I am using a little bit of a carbonizing flame. It's a softer flame. It's cooler than a neutral flame. And I can just see the clear fires just starting to melt. You might see these dancing around a little bit on the surface. And just give it a second or two. So now that clear fire completely evaporated off. So now I can go in with a more aggressive neutral flame and begin to melt these down. And so they're going to go into strike. I don't know if the camera can see, but the very center of these flowers, they were red, so they turned black or dark brown, just like this piece did. And it's just a normal thing that enamels do, or any glass that glass does. And then I'm just going to stay on there with the heat. And just let the piece absorb the heat slowly. Don't come drilling in too hard like that. There's no point in it, because everything has to come up to temperature. And just out of habit, I always keep a tool that I can manipulate the glass with. I also teach jewelry making, and I always have a solder pick in my other hand so I can manipulate the solder under the torch as well. It's a good habit to develop. So these are just starting to get hot enough to move. I can see them sinking down into the enamel that's already there a little bit. I'm just testing to see, yeah, they're soft. So you have an option. You have the option of melting these down totally flat, totally into the surface, or you can melt them down just part way. And I kind of like a little texture. Traditional enameling, like the Cartier version of enameling, and really fine enameling, yeah, glassy, super smooth, flawless surfaces are a must. But in some of these other applications, it's really not necessary to take them down all the way into the piece, although you can. And you can also drag these too. Anything you're doing in glass, you can also use a dragging application. So these are sitting in there really nice. They're going to have a nice interruption in the piece. This is something I did on a demo a couple days ago, and it's actually broken pieces of flowers, and I just put them over a black background. But as you can see, they're not melted down all the way or totally flat into the surface like these threads are. I'm trying to see if I have some florals that I've melted all the way into the glass. And like this piece, you can see that the flowers are melted in much flatter or much more down. So it just depends on the look that you like. I like a little bit of texture. When we took a break, I also pulled an example out of just the same kind of enameling, but this is a metal box that we teach people how to make at Santa Fe Jeweler Supply. And it's just a really cute little round container. But these are all very basic enameling skills. And this is, can you see the wires brightly? Kind of. Okay, but these little crescents are copper wire that was rolled flat and then cut into half rounds, and then just placed on there in an arrangement that I thought would work. And I literally just fused them into the surface of the glass with the flux, and then I just applied the color in different areas. And then at a later date, I applied the color to the sides. And so it's a very handsome little piece. When I make these, I also like to I like to use a lot of metal or a lot of weight, the sensation of weight with a piece. So I have copper on the insides and outsides, and it just gives it a really nice feeling in the hand, and it doesn't really drive the cost up. So this one is made so when this color is aligned with the side rail, the lid will come out easily, and then when you put the lid back in, just turn it less than a quarter turn, and it's not as tight as I thought, and it gets tighter. So from some very basic skill sets, you can do some wonderful things. So of course the sterling box was fabricated, or the container, but not too long you can start doing some really magical little pieces if jewelry is not necessarily the thing that you want to go after and do. So these are coming back nicely, and the orchid color is getting sweeter and sweeter by the minute as the piece cools off, and you can begin to see the true color. So you have just basic opaque color, and we have glass threads that you can drag or you can leave them on straight. This is an example of the glass threads being applied and just left on straight as a decorative color over a transparent green.